Do you mind if I just give us a quick check, Mark? It's been like a couple of weeks since I've been to it.
Oh, right, you mean that way,
Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Is that a good volume, ladies and gentlemen? It's coming through okay? Wonderful.
You are, Mark. Good to see you again, by the way, for a couple of weeks.
Alright, still a bit loud I think, okay. Alright everybody, good morning, hello and welcome to London Duck Tours. How are we all doing today? Here at the beginning of the end of an era, unfortunately. I think people are aware of this today. It's the last day of operations for 15 years for Duck Tours. Quite a momentous occasion, certainly for us at the front here, and presumably for some of you as well. Nice to have you along, guys. Where are we in from? At the front, guys. We in from London today or further afield? London, further back? Enfield, not too far away. Southend, nice to have you along. I came in from not too far from Southend myself today, actually. Southend, and further back, Kingston, further back, Kingston, and at the back, folks. Pardon? East Grinstead. Never heard of it, sure it's lovely. At the back. Croydon, I've heard of Croydon. Croydon, further in. Kingston, Charleston, and further up. Devon, nice to have you along, folks. I think that's the most exotic place we've got so far, Devon. Devon, and further up, Australia. Brisbane. And is this just a happy chance that you've ended up on Duck Tours today? Okay. I was going to say we're all honorary Londoners for the day, but to be fair, you pretty much all are Londoners anyway, so I guess that's the way of it. Does mean my facts have to be correct. Alright, well my name's Ben, I'll be your guide ideally for the next 75 minutes, as advertised, although depending on London traffic, it could be anywhere up to 4.5 days. So we'll see how we go. My name's Ben, funny accent, I was born in London, but I grew up lots of my life in New Zealand, so just across the pond, we're probably related. Just across the pond. People do say, why are we getting the London cultural experience from someone from the other side of the planet? It is a good question. The way I see it is London was always the heart of the old British Empire, and so for people from the colonies, this was historically where we came to try and make a few pounds. Nothing's really changed. We're just happy not to be working in a bar in Shepherd's Bush, so all's going well there. And this is our driver Mark. He is without a shadow of a doubt, and I've said this to all the drivers, but I actually mean it for Mark here today, on the last day of operations. He is the safest pair of hands in the business. Mark is such a good driver that on the day he was born, he drove his mum home from the hospital. So we're very lucky to have him along. A few quick housekeeping rules, ladies and gentlemen. You're each in charge of these state-of-the-art air conditioning systems. You can have up or down as the options. Hands and feet and all of that do need to stay on the duck. Strictly speaking, there's no food and drink. Do we mind on the last day, Mark? Mark's not cleaning the duck. Let's have a barbecue. Okay. I'm not that fussed today. And finally, traffic. I don't think we'll get much traffic on a Sunday morning. If we do get a bit, better value for money, I think. Not much Mark and I can do about the traffic. We used to have an M60 machine gun on the front. What with health and safety being what it is, that had to come off. And one last very important thing before we get into the sights. What are your names at the front here? What's your name? Louis. Nice to meet you, Louis. Louis, Theodore, and pardon? Edie. Louis, Theodore, and Edie. I've got a job for you guys. Anyone else can get involved as well. What's your name at the back there? Caleb. Nice to meet you, Caleb. Caleb, you're in charge of looking out for the back as well. Louis, Theodore, Edie, Caleb, here's your job. Okay, so as we go around, folks, you might see, we are the first one out today, but later on in the tour, we might see a few more of these out. These are called ducks. They're 8.5 tons and they're bright yellow. They're very easy to see. Your job, if you see any of those guys, is to point at them, wave your arms in the air and say, Ben, be quiet immediately. There's a duck over there. No one cares that much about Henry VIII. At which point we might try, if you're up for it, to out-quack the other ducks. Now, it is a bit of a tradition. We're all about traditions today. Quacking's very simple. Louis, 2 fists, armpits, quack, quack, quack. Okay? The idea is to be louder than the other duck. Now, Louis looking up for it. The door's not quite convinced, I don't think, at the front, but that's a bit of a tradition here. So if we see them, that's sort of what we might do. Of course, quacking is optional. I would probably say it would be good fun on the last day. I will tell you this though, there's nothing more awkward, I promise you, for everyone on board than me quacking by myself. So that's the plan there. Okay. And on the subject of ducks as well, just before we get around the Park Plaza Hotel onto Westminster Bridge, worth introducing the vehicle we're in today as well. Mistress Quickly, one of her last rides through the city today. God, I don't know what will come of it. I might end up on, I think one of them's up to Loch Ness, I think. Yeah. Well, who knows what. Anyway, one of the last rides of Mistress Quickly here in London in its current incarnation. All of our vehicles, we're proud to say, are authentic World War II machines. They were built in 1942 by General Motors and used in the 1944 D-Day landings. So I will grant you that they're slightly primitive on the air conditioning and they make the occasional clank. But I think it's a good trade-off to be sat in an authentic piece of World War II world history today. Mistress Quickly, incidentally, is the heroine from the play. She's a reoccurring character from a few different Shakespearean plays. We've got 9 ducks in the fleet all up, and they're all named after different Shakespearean heroines. So we might see a few as we go around today. Titania, Mistress Quickly, Cleopatra, that sort of thing. The only heroine we deliberately didn't include is the heroine from the play Hamlet. Her name is Ophelia, and in that play, Ophelia drowns. We thought it might be a bit grim, but a partly water-based tour to have a duck called Ophelia. With all of that said, any second now, Mark will have got us through that worst bit of traffic right at the start, unfortunately, and we'll be on to Westminster Bridge any second. Oh, well, that's yesterday, is it? Now, just before we get to the bridge, folks, a quick sort of potted history of London. London, as we know it today, is sort of it's more or less a combination of two older cities. The city of Londinium, which goes back about 2,000 years, that was a Roman trading city. We're the financial centre of the city is today. Around the Bank of England, Liverpool Street, all the skyscrapers, that's where the Romans originally built their mercantile city over east of here. Then about 1,000 years on from that, so it goes back about 2,000 years, about 1,000 years ago, a man called Edward the Confessor was tired of how noisy and dirty and grimy the city of Londinium was, and he thought, right, I'm going to build myself a retreat, a spiritual getaway from the city. He came about 2 miles to the west and built a ministry to the west of the city in what was then an island in the River Thames known as Thorney Island. The ministry in the west, or Westminster. So London has evolved from the old trading city of Londinium and the more sort of spiritual and royal city of Westminster over the last 2,000 years. And as we come over Westminster Bridge just now, out to the right hand side, you can't quite see the skyscrapers, but this is where the old Roman city would have been, and Westminster of course here on the left. And in the middle there's a very, very recognisable landmark coming up into sight. Does anyone have any idea what that tower might be called? What do we think, Louis? Big Ben. Oh, you've fallen into my trap there. Big Ben is the name of the bell inside the tower rather than the tower itself. 99% of people around the world think it's called Big Ben. It's actually called the Queen Elizabeth Tower. Big Ben itself is 13.5 tons, absolutely enormous. So heavy that it cracked under its own weight the first time it was rung in the mid-19th century. Now rings in a sharper key of E than was originally intended. Fantastic piece of engineering. A not so good piece of engineering is Portcullis House. That's this building over on the right hand side. Silvery grey colour. It's the most expensive office block ever built in the United Kingdom. Portcullis House cost the taxpayer £235 million. It was built as office space for the politicians, overspill office space from Westminster. £235, they made it bomb-proof, blast-proof, bulletproof, shock-proof, earthquake-proof, and in the second week of opening, the whole thing flooded. Boudica, or Boadicea, depending on your pronunciation. She was the queen of the Iceni tribe from Norfolk. Laid siege to the old Roman city of Londinium down this way back in 61 AD. There's sections of the old wall built to keep her out over by Tower Hill Tube Station. And built into the foundation of Portcullis House is Westminster Tube Station. Some of you may have come in through Westminster Tube Station today. It's the deepest single excavation in London. It's a 39-metre deep hole going straight down into the ground. The station built up through it. And it's so deep it's caused land subsidence through the road, and now the Elizabeth Tower, or Big Ben, from where we are, is leaning slightly to the left as a result of this. Unlike the politicians on the inside, I might point out, but slightly. They put it down to one lane here, ladies and gentlemen, which might take us a wee while to get through, but it's quite an appropriate place. In fact, it's probably the most appropriate place in the world to talk about the traffic light, which is currently holding us here. The first traffic light ever was tested here in front of the Houses of Parliament. It was probably a stone's throw over on the other side there, but we're going to go with it being here. 1868, so this is before the use of electricity, and it was 3 gas lamps on top of each other. It ran for about 1 month here in Parliament Square before the whole thing exploded. The policeman who had to operate at all times ended up in hospital, and it wasn't seen for 40 years till it reappeared in the United States with electricity. But the first one ever was right where we are now. And coming up into Parliament Square, there is a statue of a man directly in front of us here on the right hand side, in a trench coat with a cane, voted in 2002 the greatest Briton of all time, and it is of course our driver Mark, just over now. It's Winston Churchill, our wartime Prime Minister, defended Britain in its hour of need during the Battle of Britain and the rest of the Second World War. His is the only statue in Parliament Square with electrification. So if a pigeon lands on Churchill's head, gets a short sharp electric shock and is sent on its way before it can do its business on the head of our greatest statesman. This is Westminster Abbey, and we'll be coming back past it from that angle later on, talk a bit more about the Abbey then. Also, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela over here as well. Now these 3 aren't considered Englishmen, but they are considered champions of democracy. So that's people who brought on British values in a positive way, so they're celebrated here with the Prime Ministers of old. And what I think is really interesting about the statues of Parliament Square is if all of these men came back to life and got put in a room together, they'd probably be having an almighty fisticuff because they disagreed about almost everything. Churchill and Gandhi didn't get on. Lincoln would have disagreed with every Prime Minister just about ever. We were doing this tour about a month ago though, and I said, coming past here, if all of these men came back to life, Churchill, Gandhi, Lincoln, got put in a room together, they'd have an almighty fist fight. And Mark took that opportunity to lean in and go, that's a pay-per-view I would watch, which was quite a good one, right? Yeah. We'll be coming back round Parliament Square for a second time in about 20 to 25 minutes. Turning out to Whitehall, folks. And in the middle of Whitehall, any second now, out the right-hand side, is the Cenotaph. Cenotaph is Greek for empty tomb, and it's here on Remembrance Day, November the 11th. The Queen lays a memorial wreath for the fallen servicemen of the originally of the First World War, but now it represents all of Britain's overseas conflicts. And out the left-hand side is, of course, 10 Downing Street, the official residence of our Prime Minister, Theresa May. Before her, David Cameron, and hundreds of years' worth of Prime Ministers before them. It used to be the case, Louis, you could walk right up to the front door of the Prime Minister's house. It was only guarded by 1 policeman. They brought the gates and the armed guards in the late 1980s for the obvious reason of keeping the politicians on the inside. And Field Marshal Hay coming up any second out the right-hand side as well, was a field commander from the First World War, not terribly popular with his men, and it's say his horse was positioned the stance that a horse would be in if it was relieving itself as a final sort of snub nose to the Field Marshal. Speaking of horses, Horse Guards parade out on the left-hand side. This is the official military entrance to Buckingham Palace. The guards out the front at the moment are the Blues and Royals. If they were in red, they'd be the Lifeguards, and when we talk about the changing of the guard, it's the swapping between these 2 different household cavalry regiments. They look quite ceremonial, but don't let that fool you, they are frontline cavalry units. So when they're not here, they're driving tanks and armoured carriers in active war zones. certainly the real deal. And Henry VIII's old tilt yards out the back there as well, where he'd have his jousting matches. And if you like Harry Potter, do we like Harry Potter? Harry Potter over there, the Ministry of Magic from Harry Potter was filmed down this side street, just here. It's where Ron Weasley's dad works in the Harry Potter films, just down there. Which brings us up to Trafalgar Square, ladies and gentlemen. Named after the 1805 victory at the Battle of Trafalgar, Lord Admiral Horatio Nelson stood atop Nelson's column. Over 200 years ago, Nelson went over for a battle with Napoleon off the coast of Spain at Trafalgar. A big naval battle. So if you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean, imagine that without Johnny Depp or the zombies. That's more or less the Battle of Trafalgar. Lord Nelson won that battle, but it did cost him his life. It was one of Lord Nelson's final requests to be buried on English soil. This was a huge problem, however, as back in 1805 no one had invented the fridge. They were 2.5 months of sea voyage away from the UK at the time. So Lord Nelson's body was preserved in a vat of stolen French brandy. And when that brandy got back to the UK, after 2.5 months at sea, half of it was missing, which meant the sailors had been having a sneaky drink the whole way back. Very full-bodied brandy, by all accounts. And the column itself is 169 feet high. It's the same height as the mast on the flagship of the HMS Victory. Gives you an idea just how huge these old galleons were. By the way, for anyone at the back, particularly in these two seats, the best view you'll get of the column will probably be at the back as we go around in a second. Also 4 lines around the base, Trafalgar lines. If you look at the back legs, guys, they don't look quite right. The man who sculpted them, Edward Landseer, he'd never seen a real life lion, and he based the back legs therefore on his bloodhounds. They look much more like dog's legs, they do like lion's legs. Canadian High Commission out the right hand side, formerly known as Oceanic House. There we go, up the side, Oceanic House. If we were here in 1912, it would have been outside Oceanic House that people would have been queuing up to buy tickets, locally travel insurance for the Titanic outside this building just here. Coming to Pall Mall now, ladies and gentlemen. So if you've played Monopoly on the British Monopoly set, it's one of the more expensive tiles. Out the left-hand side here, this is the Reform Club. In Around the World in 80 Days, Phineas Fogg makes his famous wager in there. It's one of a number of different gentlemen's clubs here in Pall Mall and St James Street. When I say gentlemen's clubs, not gentlemen's clubs in the way some of us might be thinking in 2017. The gentlemen's club of old goes back about 200 years. And it was where well-connected political men would sit and discuss the news of the day and drink exotic drinks, which at the time was hot chocolate, because the cocoa bean was the hardest thing to sort of import and to refine. Of course, the royals now live in Buckingham Palace, but they didn't used to. They used to live at the end of Pall Mall, here in St James Palace, just there, St James Palace. This was the original royal residence, goes back about 500 years. Henry VIII built it for his wife at the time, Anne Boleyn, winning him the Husband of the Year award, something he would lose a few years later, for reasons we won't go into, but still the site of the royal baptisms to this day. And this is St James Street, probably the most exclusive and expensive shopping street in the country. Lock & Co is the oldest hat shop in the world, and Lob is the most expensive shoe shop in Europe. £3,500 for a pair of shoes from Lob, not cheap. Louis, ask your parents for a pair of shoes from Lob. Say, you can't put a price on orthopedic support, mum. We'll see what happens. That's the Boodles Club, right building with the black railings. It's the second oldest gentlemen's club in the country, where they say the Earl of Sandwich came up with a very interesting invention. I forget exactly what it was. Second oldest, and the oldest is this one here, White's. White's goes back to the 18th century. They do things like ironing the newspapers and polishing all the coins in the till. It's a bit extreme. White's. And Charles, Prince Charles had his bachelor party, no word of a lie, Prince Charles had his bachelor party in there in 1981 before marrying Diana. Had his bachelor party before marrying Camilla at the Wetherspoons around the corner, but we don't talk quite so much about that. And turning on to Piccadilly now, ladies and gentlemen. Traffic's been wonderful today. We had some bad traffic over summer, and this is a nice flow to end it with. This is the Ritz Hotel at the left-hand side, probably the most famous hotel chain in the world, the Ritz, and this was the first one, opened in 1905 by a Swiss hotelier called Caesar Ritz. Very nice in there indeed. It's modelled on the court of the French king with the same name as you, Louis XIV, and he was pretty into luxury, so it's nice. On its own power and water grid. Has anyone been for high tea at the Ritz by any chance? Enjoyable experience? Well, I apologise for price dropping, folks, but it is quite interesting. High tea at the Ritz, it's not the cheapest thing in the world. Plate of sandwiches, cup of tea, couple of cakes, and an optional glass of champagne. It will set you back about £69 at the moment in the Ritz Hotel. Not cheap.
Cost us £35.
Pardon?
Cost us £35.
Yeah, 35, well, a few years ago then.
Yeah, it was quite some years ago.
I always think a good time to ring up by contrast the Tesco meal deal. £3 for a sandwich, a snack, and a drink of your choice. So you get 23 of them for the same price. That's Green Park out the side there. No prices for guessing as to why it's called Green Park. It's very green. It's the smallest of the royal parks at 52 acres. The legend as to why it's called Green Park goes back to Charles II and his wife at the time, Catherine of Braganza. Charles and Catherine were walking through that park one summer's day, back when there were said to be flowers in it. And Catherine turned to Charles and said, "Charles, why don't you pick a flower and give it to the most beautiful woman in the park?" For any young men on board, you might find at some stage growing up, this is a trap, okay? There's one correct response to this. Charles got it wrong. He picked a flower and gave it immediately to his wife's lady-in-waiting. Catherine went ballistic and had all of the flowers removed from the park. And so the legend goes. And on a slightly more serious note, the monument to Bomb and Command out the left-hand side commemorates the 55,500 lives lost during the bombing missions during the war. It was only opened in 2012 and had to be privately funded. There were 6,000 war veterans out here for that opening ceremony, and a Lancaster bomber plane flew over and dropped 1 million poppy petals over the opening ceremony. Quite a lovely image. This is Hyde Park Corner we're on at the moment. It's the busiest corner in London, believe it or not. Not too far away from Buckingham Palace. The Wellington Arch in the middle, built for the 1815 victory, the Battle of Waterloo by the Duke of Wellington. And of all the things I can recommend doing, there's two things I'll recommend doing for free in London. One is going up to the viewing platform at the top of the walkie-talkie. If anyone wants to be reminded of that, it's brilliant.
Did you do it last week?
Yeah, I did it last night. Really good.
Amazing.
33 stories up, completely free. You pay £25 out of the Shard. That's one of the two things I'd recommend. The other is going out to Bayswater on the other side of Hyde Park. That's over here. Hiring a bicycle costs you a couple of quid. Cycling through Hyde Park Corner, Green Park, and St James Park after that. If you're like you're in the middle of the countryside and you're cycling through one of the busiest cities in the world, really recommend doing those. Out the back is the Lanesborough Hotel. It's the most expensive hotel in London. The suite at the Lanesborough is 7 bedrooms, comes with a chauffeured Rolls Royce and a butler, but it will set you back £80,000 a night. Not cheap at all. Apparently the Wi-Fi is rubbish and they won't even throw in breakfast, so I'd avoid it. And out the left-hand side is a big spiky fence. Behind that, of course, the gardens of Buckingham Palace. Now, the reason the security is so high goes back to 1982 and a man called Michael Fagan. In 1982, at 7 AM in the morning, Fagan climbed over that wall. Believe it or not, found himself in the Queen's bedroom. Now, Fagan and the Queen spoke for about 15 minutes about his life and his problems, until Fagan asked for a cigarette lighter. She'd been hitting the panic button the whole time, by the way, but nothing happened. The Queen was a non-smoker, so for her to be calling downstairs at 7 AM in the morning, asking for a cigarette lighter, made the butler go, "Hang on a minute, what's going on here?" He went upstairs and Fagan was arrested. Nice. Fagan was arrested. The rest is history. Rumour has it though the Duke of Edinburgh went to visit Fagan some days later in jail to ask where the Queen's bedroom was. For the younger ones, have we read the BFG by any chance or seen the movie? Do you know that one? The BFG? Big Friendly Giant? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm sure someone's read it. That's in that story. There's a bit where the BFG puts a girl called Sophie on the Queen's bedroom windowsill. That was written later in the same year, 1982, and it was in this real-life event with Michael Fagan that Roald Dahl got his idea for that episode in his novel. Any second now, folks, coming up on the left-hand side, the Royal Mews. here. Historically, where kings and queens are kept horses and carriages, nowadays it houses the royal fleet of cars. If you ever see a car in the UK without a license plate, it could be part of the royal fleet. They don't have to have license plates. Of course, usual judgment on that. If it's a Rolls Royce driving around Belgravia, yeah, maybe. If it's up on bricks without a license plate in the dodgy parts of South London, probably doesn't belong to the Queen, but I suppose you never know. And there's a carriage in there as well. That's from you guys run from Australia today. Yeah, from Australia. It was the Diamond Jubilee carriage given to the Queen for her 60th anniversary on this throne by the Australian government, and it was built by combining pieces of the old empire. So bits of the mast of the HMS Victory and bits of the Antarctic bases, and melted down cannonballs from Waterloo, and lumped it all together, put a few hydraulics in it, and presented it to the Queen. But I've worked with the carriage in Australia, and to me, this basically sounds like they probably started out with trying to modify a Hilux, and then just went, oh, you know, scrapyard challenge, bit of duct tape, and anyway. And we are coming around at the moment, folks, what is technically the back that most people think is the front of Buckingham Palace. The reason there's that confusion is because any second now as we go through these lights, there's the big, impressive, iconic view of the palace out on the left-hand side, coming up any minute now. But it is technically the back, as all of this is the newest section. This is the Victoria wing, built as a nursery for Queen Victoria when she first moved in back in the early 1800s. The rest of the palace, going back this way, was bought by George III in the late 1700s. Coincidentally, he spent £28,000 buying Buckingham House, which is the same price as one night in the suite at the Lambeth Hotel nowadays. Gives you an idea just how much money's gone up in value. Now, shall we give them a count? 1, 2, 3. Any second now, by the way, folks, when these lights change, we're going to go through the intersection, the view's out the left-hand side. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to take the tour bus in front of Buckingham Palace. Now, we are in an ongoing argument with the Queen on Twitter. I can assure you about the fact that actually we're a boat, but she's got no sense of humour. And there was a slightly unfortunate cracking incident a few years back. So, Mark will take us right, but there's that big iconic view of the palace any second now. Which, by the way, is still open to the public for the remainder of the month. You can go in and have a look around. Very good opportunity to do that. It's only for 2 months a year, August and September. So it's sort of coming up to the last opportunity here. There we go, folks. Brilliant. That would be amazing. That would have been great. That would have been great. Maybe the last one. Also in front of the palace, folks, you would have seen a big golden memorial. That was the Victoria Memorial, built for Queen Victoria, our second longest reigning monarch of all time, outlived only by Elizabeth. Now, Victoria, for the first half of her reign, was one of the most intelligent and hands-on and capable queens we've ever had. Parliament thought she'd be this teenage girl they could push around. They got that really badly wrong. She was a really, really brilliant queen. But, and then about halfway through her reign, in 1861, their husband Albert died of typhoid. And Victoria never recovered. She went into mourning for about 40 years and wore black and became known as the Widow of Windsor. During that time, all the railings in London and all the carriages were painted black. Those carriages would later become the taxi cabs, which is why taxis in the city are black to this day. The Wellington Barracks out the left-hand side as well. 5 regiments of household infantry garrisoned here, only 300 yards away from the palace. If anyone's seen Game of Thrones, it illustrates very well the importance of having a standing army on your doorstep back in the day when there was always other families trying to wrestle power for ruling houses. Now the right-hand side is St James Park Tube Station. The organisational centre of operations for the Tube here in London. Now lots of people from London or from around London today, the Tube's massively overlooked as part of the city's history, but it's really fascinating. London was the first city in the world to have tube lines in 1863. Paddington to Farringdon, the original, the Metropolitan line, sort of the dark purple one up the northern side of the city. Oh, there we go, that's a good photo opportunity out the left-hand side there. There's a black cab behind us. No, still, here we go. What was I saying? I was saying something for when we were at Trafalgar Street. Oh, but the only city ever to put steam trains underground as well, which is quite incredible when you think about it. And if you go through Embankment Station, you'll hear a different Mind the Gap to the rest of the tube. It sounds much older. Listen out for it on the Northern Line. A different Mind the Gap through the speakers. It's the original one from 1969. The man who recorded it has now passed away from old age. But they play the original one that he did in 1969 to the very elderly widow, a woman called Margaret, can hear her husband's voice as she goes about her business, banging to her local station. How nice is that? And directly in front of us, ladies and gentlemen, is of course Westminster Abbey, crowning place, burial place, and wedding place of the vast majority of British monarchs throughout history. Now, legend has it, back in 1066, William the Conqueror won the he won the Battle of Hastings, and later that year he came into the city, and legend has it, rode his horse in through the doors of Westminster Abbey here, and from horseback told the Archbishop of Canterbury, "I'm the king now, you better get used to that." Obviously not in a weird Cockney New Zealand accent, but my French accent's not very good. What was that, sorry? Oh, I know. And it looks like they are expecting someone important going out here, judging by the police presence. Not quite sure what it is. Maybe it's a send-off for DUKWs, who knows? That would be good, wouldn't it? Start firing some guns in the air and saluting us. I'm taking it as a fit for us, yeah. Up above the archway there's a series of statues as well. Champions to modern martyrdom. The one in the middle is Martin Luther King Jr. Who is it? Now, it's quite interesting seeing this actually. Westminster Abbey does have a fair amount of pomp and circumstance associated with it. Most of the royals got married here, but Charles and Diana were a notable exception. And that's because this place is seen as quite a place of the royals and a place of the church. St. Paul's Cathedral, on the other hand, survived 11 weeks of bombs falling in the Blitz, became a symbol of resistance for the people of London. Diana was seen as the people's princess, so she was married at St. Paul's Cathedral instead of Westminster Abbey. It's also the burial place of the vast majority of British monarchs throughout history, as well as Dickens and Darwin and Newton and all sorts of writers and thinkers and intellectuals buried here at the Abbey as well. Coming back around Parliament Square for a second time now, ladies and gentlemen. From here we can actually see the oldest building that we will see on the tour. So, if you look at the Houses of Parliament, the Elizabeth Tower here, and coming into sight any minute now, the Victoria Tower on the far side, named after our two longest reigning monarchs of all time. They're quite detailed. It's what's called neo-Gothic architecture, and it goes back about 160 to 170 years, these two towers. The bit in the middle, however, looks a bit different. It's a slightly sandier colour of stone, and it's much more simple in its design. And the reason for that is that's Westminster Hall. It's the only remaining section of the original Westminster Palace that once stood here. Westminster Palace goes back to the time of William the Conqueror, 1090. It burnt down in a fire in 1834 and was rebuilt into what we see today, with the exception of Westminster Hall, which survived the fire. So that middle bit there is the oldest building we'll see on tour, dating back almost 1,000 years, 1097 Westminster Hall. It was the scene of the trials of Charles I and William Wallace and Guy Fawkes. It used to be a huge thatched roof with spikes and traitors' heads on the top of it. Also on the hall, directly in front of the hall and on the Elizabeth Tower here as well, we do have scaffolding. Scaffolding was installed in the early 1700s by the Earl of Scaffolding. It's just a company that I think is getting paid by the piece if you look at it. It's the most excessive use of scaffolding I think I've ever seen. And I've seen one workman on there once at one point. By the way, they've silenced Big Ben as well for 4 years as well, because they're worried about people's hearing, which, I mean, I'm not a workman on there, so I don't want to comment too much, but it rang through the Blitz as Don Spiller ended it, and now Health and Safety has successfully silenced Big Ben for the next 4 years. This character here is Oliver Cromwell. He's a very controversial figure in British history. A lot of people do not like Cromwell at all. Cromwell was, he had his trial at Westminster Hall. He'd been dead for 2 years when this happened. They dug Cromwell's body up and posthumously put him on trial for treason. And Oliver Cromwell's the man we can thank for, they weren't particularly impressed with him. But we can thank Oliver Cromwell for mince pies. He's remembered as the man who tried to cancel Christmas. Sort of the original Scrooge. He came along and said, Christmas is ungodly, it's too greedy and decadent, we're not having it anymore. He banned lots of stuff, including mince pies. Mince pies used to have meat in them, which kind of makes sense with a name like mince pies. The bakers in London got around those laws by putting sweetened fruits in mince pies instead, which is stuck to this day, which is why mince pies are slightly counterintuitively named. And any second now, out on the right hand side, coming past one of Britain's worst kept secrets. This building here begins with M. Any thoughts? MI5, this one. A lot of people say MI6, that's coming up shortly. This is MI5, the domestic secret service. MI6 is the international secret service. MI stands for military intelligence. 5 and 6 are said to be the 5th and 6th letters of the alphabet. E and F, English and foreign. That's debatable, but it's a good way of remembering it. I had a guy from Bavaria in Germany sat here about a month ago, and I came past and said, does anyone know the difference between MI5 and MI6? And he looked at me and just went, 1, which is quite a good response. And out on the right, Tate Britain. 500 years worth of British artwork on display here. Turner, Constable, Hockney, Francis Bacon, all sorts. For me though, the building is much more interesting in the fact it used to be the Millbank Penitentiary. It's the largest prison in Victorian England. Now, coming in from Australia, I dare say at certain points you'll have called people with English accents Pont. And it's more than likely some of you, particularly who've been to Australia, might have got that nickname as well. That comes from that building there, the old Millbank Penitentiary. People were kept there before they were deported out to the colonies. And Pons is said to come from prisoners of Millbank, or prisoners of Mother England. Or Dad, as I grew up knowing him, but anyway. You can tell very well. Well, by the end of August, I was I did 25 days. Particularly the fat ones.
Most of us are from London, love.
I had
Tourists, I suppose.
Now, any second now, ladies and gentlemen, this light's changing. We're going over Vauxhall Bridge. We saw MI5 a second ago. MI5 is quite good, but it's not half as good as MI6. Coming up now on the left-hand side of the duct, just here. MI6, the International Secret Service, the James Bond building. 9 stories high, said to be 5 stories deep, bomb-proof, glass-proof, bullet-proof, shock-proof, blown up in Skyfall. Pierce Brosnan comes flying out the side of it on a jet ski in Die Another Day. Something we'll be recreating on our own slipway any minute now. Signs look like an old Babylonian temple as well, designed by a man called Terry Farrell. One of the most surveillance buildings in the world, over 100 different security cameras on there. And here at Duck we've had a telephone call to the office once from MI6 from River with James Bond people. Very exciting day in the office. It's not every day you get a call from James Bond at work. But they weren't calling up to enlist us into any sort of mission or operation. It was during the filming of Skyfall. They were calling up to ban us from using Vauxhall Bridge for the day, because they thought it'd be hard for Daniel Craig to look cool with a big yellow duck full of people going quack, quack, quack in the background of the shot.
It depends on what tour they're on. I think the first one since Charles was required. You've got time probably if you get on the front cliff straight afterwards.
Yeah. Another one that made me laugh as well. Coming around here, this goes back a couple of months probably, but coming around here, the gates at the side of MI6 rolled slowly open. And it was one of the last tours of the day, at 5 o'clock in the evening. A man rolled out the side of this building on a jet black sports motorbike. Now coming out here, it's quite likely he's a real life Secret Service officer. It's a place where they would be. And he rolled out, £30,000-40,000 bike. He had the full leathers on, black helmet, tinted out visor. It looked seriously cool as he rolled slowly out of the side of MI6, except for the fact the whole image was slightly ruined by the great big white and red learner plate on the front of the bike, which is not very James Bondy at all. Okay folks, our driver Mark taking us left onto our slipway. Probably have some idea as to what's about to happen.
Yep.
You guys are shutting down because the slipway is
compulsory purchase. They need this to get construction vehicles into the Thames, and this is the only one in central London. And you can't build one because no one will sell you the land because it's worth millions of pounds to build property on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get a round of applause for our driver Mark, who we will be seeing in about 20-25 minutes time. Thank you very much, Mark. See you later. Mark's just off for a quick job interview for his next bit of work over on the left-hand side. Okay, you might be wondering, by the way, Theodore and Louis and Edie, why we are parked up next to the River Thames and saying goodbye to our driver. It's because I think on the last day here we'll do the tour a bit differently, and this might be a fun place to park up for 20 minutes and look at the River Thames while we have a discussion about mineral content in urban rivers. No, I'm only joking. We'll get our skipper Anthony on board any second now, and he will be taking us down onto the river. Welcome aboard, Anthony. Now I can tell you this, folks, as well. Anthony's the one you want. He does go down quite fast. It's good fun. Okay, quick bit of important stuff before we get underway, though. Welcome aboard, Anthony. We've got life raft on the roof, folks, and life jackets up here. All have been approved by the Maritime and Coast Guard Association. What's that? Sorry. John the photographer. We've got a John the photographer. Hello, John.
there he is.
Yes.
Oh God! Tell him I'll phone him later.
George says he'll phone you later. He's got the wrong email address.
I wonder if it's fun to email him some pictures this
And then an email.
Thank you.
Oh, you're gonna
By the way,
tell me
folks, I've still got to do the
Oh,
announcement.
sorry.
By the way, folks, that's one of our other skippers. It's not just a random man that's approached the duck. Life raft up here, life jackets there. We're going to go down into the water any second now. Anthony's not afraid of the accelerator pedal. It's good fun, but you do need to hold on tight. Okay, put a hand on the seat in front of you. I will show you how a life jacket goes on. These are very simple, folks. These are very simple. 2 armholes, 1 head hole. Goes on just like this. Easy. And it clips up the front and tightens up there. When we're on the water, there's 2 rules. The first is staying in seats. Now it's okay if you stand up and readjust yourself, but not sort of hovering around on these steps. And for anyone smaller, this is really important, not kneeling up or standing up next to the side, because it's not very high there. So we do need you sat in seats. Hold on tight, and the emergency exit is at the back. I'm sure that we'll need it. Now I don't want to raise expectations too much before this, guys, but it probably will be the best moment of your lives so far. So hold on, here we go.
Not too fast, though, eh?
Hold on,
Terrified.
entry into the River Thames by this duck, which come to think of it, is not only one of the trustiest ones in the fleet. This was actually the prototype duck. It's got a slightly different front to all the other ones, and this was probably the one that they based lots of the other ones off back in 1942 building it. So yeah, quite a historic moment in many ways coming down there just then. And if you've been paying attention, you would have noticed that we were on road, now we're in the River Thames. If you've gone with any other tour operator in London today, this will be the marginal tour going very, very badly. For us, it's a bit of a selling point. But the Thames itself was once described as a silver ribbon of liquid history. It gave life to London and could one day take life away from London as well. In terms of giving life, that refers to the fact that about 2,000 years ago now, as I said before, the Romans sailed up this river and built the trading city of Londinium down a few miles east of where we are